This is Growing My Grandpa. It's a body horror experience by Games, which we just finished Discover My Body, so I'm interested to see what this one has. So let's go grow a grandpa. Would you like to view the tutorial regarding basic mechanics? Yes. This game is designed to be played with a mouse. The input required of you is based on clicking the mouse buttons. The right mouse will change the cursor's image and function. When pointing, indicated by the extended index finger, you only when pointing can you, the player, interact with certain menu buttons and prompts. Please click the below pointing mode. Oh, I see. So there's like hand and then there's point. Got it. The second cursor mode is indicated by the cursor's image featuring a hand extending all fingers. This mode concerns interacting with objects inside the world, mainly pick up objects and moving it to another position. To continue, please pick up the piece of trash on the right and place it in the trash on the left. Remember, the right mouse button will change the cursor's mode. Nice. There will be many situations in Growing My Grandpa that will require you to pick things up, place things, grab things, or give things. Don't be afraid to experiment and keep an open mind about using your hand. Please click the button below to continue. In order to expedite the cleaning process, you can use digits 1, 2, and 3 in your keyboard's row, top of the keyboard, to reposition the trash can below. Oh, nice. Well done. Please click the continue button. A variety of video options. Yeah, we went through the video options. Default is display is scaled up by a factor of 2 and the shader is set to low. Hovering over a small question mark. Oh, I see it right there. That's it. Okay. Overlay related will be available all times during the game. Thus ends the tutorial. I hope you enjoy Growing My Grandpa. Infinite thanks to my patrons and supporters for believing in me and my work. Games. All right. Week 1. I excused Adrienne during music class today, spoke with her about a recent string of demerits. It was our first time meeting outside our quarterly evaluations. I believe it went well. I can certainly understand Miss Richardson's classroom observations concerning Adrienne's? I should probably just be Adrienne's emotional state. She was, of course, intensely shy when we first met. As I understand it, she's similarly withdrawn in her classroom activities and only speaks or acts when she absolutely must. Some things she simply will not do. Instead of participating in mandatory group activities, she will sit alone and accept that she will receive a demerit. Before meeting, I read Miss Richardson's parent-teacher report, which allowed me to estimate some about Adrienne's home life. Weird sentence. Okay. The parents are well educated and come from a prestigious background, but they lack time to properly nurture Adrienne. She is often alone, and when she is not, the parents seem to not understand the importance of warmth and affirmation when dealing with someone so young. Having two parents of this reserved and icy temperament exacts an inhibition in a child. The child's imagination is subdued, but only ostensibly, for eventually it finds its way into regular life. I surmise that I will be able to reach out to Adrienne by way of make-believe. How are you liking your new house? You've told me you used to live close by, still can't, but it still can be a big adjustment. A new room, a new school. The basement, I like that. The basement? Yeah, that's where a lot of cool stuff. Mom and Dad sent me down there. Your mom and Dad made you go? Yeah, but there's lots of cool stuff. Well, that's not why they sent me down there, though. Why did they send you down there? Fighting. They were fighting, shouting. I came in to help, and they shouted at me, said, go clean up downstairs. So I went. That sounds tough. Do they fight a lot? No. Well, it's alright, Adrienne. Maybe you can tell me more about the basement instead. Okay, well, it's weird at first, the stuff down there, but cool. I found something living, sort of. That's very interesting, Adrienne. Please tell me more. By indulging her in fantasies and stories, I was able to glean more of an understanding of Adrienne's anxiety surrounding her home and parents. The symbols of Adrienne's stories seem to carry their own traumatic weight, and her exploration of the basement may very well be a vehicle for conveyance of her anxiety. Whatever might come of our next meeting, whether she will engage in similar make-believe, I will set down her story here. Adrian's story begins with delving into the basement with a trash receptacle and a goal of cleaning up. She discovered that one of the walls has been covered in plastic bags. She went to investigate, intent on tearing away whatever they covered. Okay. Removing plastic trash bags from the wall, she noticed their interior lining was covered in glass. Like a window, I offered. No, she said like a mirror. Reflecting inward towards the animal they had covered. I gently asked her what exactly this animal was. Here is where the material reality of the story took a turn, explicitly fantastic and imaginary. Okay, so they had mirrors facing whatever this mass is. Oh, Lord. Upon her discovery of it at her gaze, it grew or extended, its shaggy hair self. Hair like fur of a dog, she offered. No, she said. Not the fur of a dog, nor the hair on her head. It grew out towards her, the animal's hair reaching out. It was hard, standing almost straight, like a hair on a brush. A bristle, I offered. Yes. She was very afraid at first, but then very curious. I asked her what else was in the room. More things hidden away, she said. Things of Grandpa's as well. She found a hidden passage under the stairs. Inside were strange dolls, magic objects, naked, faceless figures. I heard cryptic utterances and merely nodded. In order to keep the game of make-believe, I only pressed for details where I thought necessary. Faceless dolls could be a simple metaphor for the anonymity she feels in her own home. The hidden passage, I am unsure what to make of that. The revealing of the concealed seems to be thematic in our fantasy. The door under the stairs is but one example. Okay, so we got the mass. Can't interact with anything over there. Okay, we got trash pile. Nothing there. Once she removed the panel and found the magical hidden passage, she was very specific about what she took. She found a magic book, a magic doll, a photo of her late grandpa, and magic glue. Take doll. Slouching doll. Materials rough and coarse. All clean. Space will not be dirty again until next week. Okay, so we take the glue. Papers currently bound together in the form of a book. Read now. Houston Step, Shamanism and the Fusiform Gyrus, the interdisciplinary study in sympathetic magic. The impetus of this research is the recognition of a particular pattern in fragments of documents related to magic and magico-religious practices. Numerous sources were drawn from commentaries on law relating the banning of sorcery and necromancy, compilations. Okay, I thought that said compliments. I'm like, what? Compilations of folk charms relating to love spells, hagiographs of saints and their encounters with devils. The list spans many centuries and great distance, from the Levant to the Khazar Khaganate to the border of the modern nation-states of Russia and Kazakhstan today. From this paper trail arose a consistent account about a certain form of magic relating to the binding of demons to the sorcerer's will. A demon called the Heaven of Needles, I guess that's probably what that mass is, or the Angel of Needles, was known to be kept best by shamanic keepers or wards who suffer from face blindness, prospopagnosia, whether by birth or through developmental causes like stroke or head injury. It was known that extremely effective but terribly dangerous, so much so that it became outlawed several times and was generally a popular scapegoat relating to unexpected death. This nexus of magico-religious meaning-making, sorcery regarding human-related desires, and the history and science of neurological disorders related to the fusiform gyrus is where the subject of this dissertation will reside. I will outline further and then analyze the historical sources I mentioned previously, and then I will go to the neurology of mystic and magico-religious experience. After that, I will detail my ongoing correspondence with a resident of the Ural Mountain region who is an expert folklorist and keeper of traditions he claims to have been passed down through his extended family for generations. Photo of your grandfather. Mr. PhD. On the reverse side of the photograph, there's a more text. Good luck on your trip to the Urals. Okay, so he went to the mountain region. Okay, interesting. Anna tried to ask what she did with these magical, mysterious materials. Grow grandpa, she explained plainly, and then went without missing a beat. She continued with her story. Feeling there was a potent symbol, I stopped her again to ask her what she meant. Somewhat puzzled, I did not understand. She explained slowly. Grandpa lives in the cage in the other room, a cage behind the door. They grew people in the cage. Okay. Okay, I guess we can't do that. The darkness of the shadow corner unnerves you. You can't explore without some form of light. Okay. Okay. Door. Hastily written note. I repeatedly called your homes to no avail, so I'm forced to leave this here for you all. I found William sitting in the corner of the enclosure area, seemingly severely concussed. Whiskers was gone and in none of its usual hiding places. I immediately suspected the worst. The project thus has been suspended for now. I am leaving up the usual mirrored coverings we use to keep the anthropodic void sealed. I have done my best to lock up everything in such short notice. It's a hasty fix, but it will require some time for more permanent remedy. I am honestly hoping you will not find this. You do not find this note, as I intend to lock the house down too. I intend to race off to you to retrieve lockbox keys. Don't worry about William's key. It and the rest of his equipment is almost certainly deep within Whiskers now. Okay, so they're calling the entity Whiskers. I pray that you do not enter this room. No matter how it may appear, William cannot be helped and is only being kept alive by his means the continuing predation of the rest of us. I will say once again, no matter what state you may encounter William in, I have no idea what's going on with my throat right now. Hold on. I have sympathy for the young man. I truly do, but I found his person several photos of his late sister, which imply certain risks he knew he was taking. Our extant research materials have now become possible liabilities, either criminal or professional in nature, so I've stashed them away. I believe I let you all know how I might do this if we were experienced of an event such as this. I hope you all remember that what I told you. So long, then. I say there's stuff on the side. Note on an experiment, 104. For the sake of the university policy and health of a future career I hope you will abide by the non-disclosure contract you have signed. Do not break anthropodic vacuum without my prior consultation and approval. Any anthropodic forms brought into the enclosure area must not be left unattended. When not in the dormancy, the sample will attempt to take anthropoid shells. Please see shell notes for more on that. A note on experiment 204. Oh, I didn't mean to. I wanted to read that. How do I read? Where'd my note go? Oh man, hit the wrong button. Virtual behavior of the sample trading bargaining will result in dismissal from the project. Proceed mechanisms and symbols are required. Deciduous yield is not known even when anecdotal accounts of success are illegible and in violent death. Regarding growth cycles, every time Whiskers regenerates and leaves dormancy, it is to be logged in new propagation. The sample's bodily existence cannot be illegible, i.e. a part cannot be cut from the whole, so there can only be one living propagation. Propagations are to be terminated after 5 weeks. Any further development puts us at risk. Termination procedures will be posted and followed with extreme care. With all of that out of the way, I want to welcome you to the project. I look forward to working with you, Dr. Hart. Beyond the door in the room, the cage was hidden, concealed in another cloak of inward-facing mirrors. A hidden cage lined with mirrors is strange, almost poetic. The elaborate fantasy of self-reflection, concealment, and captivity. We're not going to mess with anything else. No, just the tarp. Oh, there it is. Looks like I can't see. At the cage, she finally cast her spell. It was confusing. She confided at first. She took the magic doll, the magic glue, and the photo of her grandpa, and she combined them, and she wished very hard. I can only assume this fantasy that next her wish would come true, and what child's story would it not? Okay. Grandpa. Doll. Nice. Tangible symbol of intention and desire. She put Grandpa on the cage, assuming that was part of the ritual. She was not clear on how it worked. What precise instructions she could glean from her grandfather's magic book was complicated by her reading comprehension. She wished with all her heart and then told me she waited a while for anything to happen. After that time, she began to cry. I cried really hard, she said. I wanted Grandpa to be back. I wanted my parents to stop being so mean. And it hurt me. It heard me wish for Grandpa to come back, for my parents to be different. I could feel it through the walls, and it felt me through the air. I asked her what exactly she meant. She could only repeat what she said. By this time, lunch was almost over. I said goodbye to Adrian, and she left to rejoin her class. I was left to consider our conversation. I believe storytelling strategy I have employed was not fruitful, but I must probe deeper if I can. Although I can be sure of nothing I interpret, the impressions I get may help me get an idea of the right questions to ask. Knowledge you acquired this week has given you access to certain topics or keywords you can discuss with Grandpa. You gain the conversation topic, wish. Consider discussing these when Grandpa emerges. You also gain the following keyword, shell. Okay, so apparently we're going to end up talking to Grandpa. I'm sure that's going to turn out just absolutely well for us. Met again with Adrian in order to address her emotional outbursts in the past few weeks. It is our second time meeting, and while it's standard practice to have multiple sessions with a troubled student, as I assemble a report for the counseling department, I cannot help but think, as we sat down in my office, that Adrian seemed to show a remarkable change in self-esteem and confidence. Perhaps my and Miss Richardson's estimation of her as emotionally disturbed was erroneous. The paralyzing shyness and withdrawn attitude Adrian possessed last week was not entirely diminished, but she seemed to hold herself differently this week. However, this was only last as long as our conversation pertained to initial introductory pleasantries. When I began once again asking about her parents, her feelings regarding her new school, and her new home, she quickly lost what new confidence she had gathered up and withdrew again into herself. Oh, Lord. So once again, I partook in some collaborative make-believe, but this time I was aided by the fact that I had managed to do some research into Adrian's grandfather and had some insight on what she might actually be finding in the basement. Now, this may be overstepping my bounds as some school counseling caseworker, but was all in the service of making Adrian comfortable and happy in a learning environment. In any case, I was able to dig up information regarding grandmother by inquiring at the university in town. Not that I make it a habit of sleuthing, but I had a suspicion the grandfather was a professor there, or at least some sort of researcher. Due to the fact that the newly constructed laboratory on the campus I drive by every day bears his name in memorial. Some sort of anthropologist or linguist or neuroscientist running some areas. Okay, have a good one, Boyd. I did not have to dig deeper before the scope of his work became dizzying. I ran up against the limits of my undergraduate education. Back to the make-believe. So what is your grandpa like? Is he a smart man? Not anymore, but I'm teaching him. So he's grown a good deal then. You have been feeding him well? Yeah, he's getting bigger, but he has a lot of room in his cage. He's still behind the bars? Yeah, well, he might be able to climb out eventually. There's this vent in the ceiling. Well, perhaps if he climbs out, I could meet him someday. Yeah, maybe, but he's not ready to leave. He can't take care of himself. I have to feed him, pick up after him. Ah, you store the food in your lunchbox? That's nice of you to share. He can almost talk. You cannot speak with him? No, he doesn't. He doesn't have a mouth, sort of. But how do you feed him? He has a mouth on the outside, on his shell, or the stuff that is his skin. I'm a little confused. Maybe you can go through the typical day with your grandpa. Okay. Asked her to explain us how exactly she goes about growing her grandpa, and Adrian began another tale. Putting Adrian in the week that had passed, much had changed in the basement. Should go see Grandpa first. Okay. Wake Grandpa. It was scary at first, she said. The way he moved, the way the doll skin covered him. I wanted to interject, but somehow seemed inappropriate, so I kept on listening. When I look at him, she continued, when I think about him, he grows and moves. It's like he's growing for me. So he's growing bigger, I asked. Yes, she said, bigger every day. This begins our actual growing part of growing your grandpa. Beneath the doll's burlap skin, the follicles knit together that resembles a proper person, your grandpa. You are in charge of its cognitive development and diet until it is able to sustain itself. Currently, you're observing Grandpa. Please click the arrow button below for a brief tutorial on your duties as caretaker. Okay. Here you can see a variety of options regarding growing your grandpa. Highlighted in red are the objectives related to the feeding and teaching of Grandpa. As important messages regarding Grandpa's recent activity also appear here. You'll need to find it food and learning material before you can move on to the next week. Some foods will make Grandpa happy, others merely content. Some foods will make Grandpa disgusted to the point of nausea. Learning material is also scattered through the basement. Seek out vocabulary cards intended to help teach English and basic anthropodic concept formation. The options highlighted in red are related to navigating around Grandpa's enclosure. Go to Grandpa will let you perform all actions directly related to Grandpa, feeding, teaching, observing, etc. Accessing the study corner will let you go to over any documents you pick up as the weeks go by. Okay, so we can go read that second document. It's a good idea to learn about the work of the people who last occupied this space. Accessing the kitchen corner will let you search for food in the old refrigerator and prepare food for Grandpa if need be. Help will let you replay this tutorial. Save game will save your current progress. You only have one save file at a time, so if you have saved data, you'll be asked if it's okay to overwrite it. Exit will let you take you back to the main menu. More buttons may or may not appear depending on your development of Grandpa, so watch out for them. One final note, take care to explore the basement at your leisure. However, due to entropic nature of clutter and trash, weeks may allow you to find things that had not previously been discovered. Good luck. Okay, well, let's go ahead and save. Everything that was here before is gone. Examine trash pile. Okay, probably a vocabulary card. Well clean. The space will not be dirty again until next week. Vocabulary card. Teach Grandpa how to read the notes of the past educators. Corroded battery. Isn't really food. Grandpa might eat it, however. Bulbous growth. Something appeared to be growing from the wall. You take a closer look. Slimy membrane that skin seems to contain something. Might be able to open it with a blade. Darkness. Okay, yeah. So we need a light for that. Examine. Slouching under the weight of rotten refuge. Cabinet. So we need to see if we can find a knife, I guess. Blueberries. Looks edible. Grandpa might like this. Top drawer. Creepy doll face. That looks like a blade right there. More creepy doll faces. Trash in this corner. Ah, what is this? Before we began, he had us all cover our faces completely. An earthenware pot was illegible, and on the inside we stole a brief glance. We could see the interior was inlaid with mirrors. The illegible gave small pieces of dough, spoiled food, chicken feed, keeping it content. The keeper gestured towards the small bag where the food composited and told us to be careful not to feed it any meat. Asked if rotting food was enough to sustain it, how we might get nutrients out of any of this. The keeper regarded me seriously and said it did not matter what it was fed. The act of feeding itself was all what mattered. The act of feeding flesh is another act, however. He then gave me another series of grave warnings regarding not keeping any animal-derived foods anywhere near where I might be keeping it. Okay. So no meat and no animal-derived foods. Is Gramps going great? Yeah. Okay, so we need some sort of key. Something about this painting looks strange. Search painting. Uh-huh. Folder of radiographic images. Examine this later in detail in the study corner. But it's interesting so far. It's a lot more reading than I was expecting, but we'll get through it. Didn't say this place was clean though. Fiberglass insulation. It isn't really food. Grandpa might eat it, however. Ah, there we go. Okay. Thankfully, it does have like an all clean. Waste here smell particularly strong. Okay, there's a paper doll. Sample paper doll. Might be useful in the construction of magic symbols. Can't go in there. So if we get a human representation, we have a paper doll. Okay. Go to study corner. Look over documents. I wanted to look at this one. Samples exposure to some of the neuronal activity is unavoidable. However, the speed at which the desirous yield is produced can be dampened by several precautions regarding libidimal and emotional urges. Keep the conversation not related to lab work to a minimum. If you begin to suspect you're developing attachments to your colleagues, contact me as soon as possible. Interesting. Okay. Search file cabinet 1. Oh, that looks like Cheetos. Some puffs or something. Okay, page came out of nowhere. Space is clean, okay. It was said to pass from one family of steep people, so mountain people, to another, and pressed on its ultimate origin, illegible somewhere to the south, coiled in a bowl covered with incantations, buried upside down by a graveyard, common late antiquity demon trap. The keeper, an elderly man in failing health, was ready to expound on and on about the dangers of the organism, and when I asked more pointed questions about the history of its acquisition, I was given curt responses that had a way of circling back to vague warnings. Cashews. Okay. Alright, filing cabinet 2. Okay, looks like another vocabulary card. Okay, just want to make sure. Grandpa. Okay. 3. I think there's something underneath this drawer. Remove the tape down fabric to reveal cabinet's wooden bottom. Note regarding cleanup procedures. To my colleagues, I don't mean to be overly severe in tone, but Dr. Hart's work is very important, and the material we're working on is potentially very dangerous. I'll be handing out a copy of this note as a reminder to everyone. I'm not trying to single any particular person out. We all have misconceptions about the nature of this project from time to time. With that out of the way, here are some things to keep in mind. Active growth must be thoroughly terminated via the correct procedures. At the very least, 4 weeks dormancy is interrupted. It doesn't matter what you've done or haven't done regarding tests or procedures or how much the anthropodic vacuum has been disrupted. We are not ready to go beyond 4 weeks at this point. Step-by-step guided termination has been posted by the enclosure wall. Please, please, please do not place the educational posters over the posting. Okay, so maybe that's a hint that there's something that we need to pull down. Do not disrupt the anthropodic vacuum without Dr. Hart's prior consultation and approval. In case of emergency where the vacuum is disrupted, put on your equipment and begin the lockdown procedure. Make an extensive note of when and how the breach occurred. If you find the habitat empty, page Dr. Hart immediately, but do not attempt to speak with anyone else. This thing can get very smart, and I'm sure you're all well aware from the stories we heard on our acquisition trip. The greatest caution should be used when dealing with potential aggressive mimicry scenario. Please seek me out if you have any more questions. Biohazard bin. Okay. Notation regarding sample exoskeletons. Take another drink here. Each growth from a cycle does not require a shell, but you may find a sample will often try to seize onto something somewhat flexible to grow into, along with any desirous yield it may generate. Or else it will move from one shell to the next as it outgrows them. In the small amount of time I have spent with it in preparation, I have noticed that it tends towards human forms. However, we should keep a tight lid on the anthropodic seal in order to be cautious before we begin experiment with exposing long-term anthropoid stimuli. Dr. Hart. Okay, that was cabinet 3, right? Yep. You slipped the radio images you found on the display. Power. You've taken to calling it whiskers, though of course some interpreted as hair or needles or quills, but the whiskers are more accurate as the needles are more sensory follicles or spines. The nerve nests are distributed through morphology. These spines resemble those genus Hydra, but have malin sheaths that are functionally the same as a vertebrae. Interesting. As we see in the X-ray, each spine laden with dense optical arrangements similar to the compound eyes. Hydra connection is assuredly worth investigating with regard to the organism's capacity for regeneration and anecdotal deathlessness. It is certain the robust enough creature would inspire marvel that is not untinged with fear. Oh, okay. Exposure to mammalian forms, part of the series of zoomorphic influences, led to further understanding of the propagation's ability to stimulate somatic stem cells and constitute fully developed animals. We simulate the previous statement because Examining the tissue of each propagation leads me to believe that its amazing capacity for accelerated growth as vastly different forms comes from cell-level mutability. And yet no time does it function as a thing it becomes, except in the sense that it mimics it. That is to say, when Whiskers is removed from dormancy and replicates a rabbit's morphology, it is not seeing from the rabbit's eyes nor smelling from the rabbit's nose, but pretending that it does and doing a very good job of it. Interesting, okay. Radiograph is taken at or around growth cycle number 4. The strange thing about this, the subject of the image was found nowhere near the enclosure. It's almost like a piece of Whiskers fell off and scurried into the corner. I feel like we've learned a lot since then, but at the time I remember speaking about morphology being weird, not really resembling any extant zoomorphic structure, besides maybe a cuttlefish, which happened to open the thing up. Inside were all these little dead amoeba-like things, but they all sort of looked like they had faces that are just barely there. After I took the radiograph, I gathered it up and went to go through it, throw it in. I think it's supposed to be throw it in the biohazard bin. As I walked by the bars of the enclosure, I could hear Whiskers suddenly going wild, flopping around and grunting. Could it have smelled the cuttlefish thing? Would it eat its own production? I guess it's technically flesh. This is beyond the scope of the project, but it could be that without stimulus of an active brain, or more specifically a healthy and active brain capable of face recognition, the theory of the mind, Whiskers begin to pull whatever it can from the limited data available from it. Again, this is not our focus at this time. I left a note for Dr. Hart just in case he wanted to take a look. I'm guessing these are the faces that they were talking about. Intriguing results with regard to the mimic hypothesis. A participant entered the sealed chamber adjacent to Whiskers' growth cycle number 21, which had been freed from anthropodic vacuum, constructed quite economically from plastic and broken mirrors. The first propagation's original earthenware vacuum was shattered during the move-in. Okay, so the vessel was broken, that's why they can't just put it back in. Between the two was the semi-opaque glass panel that allowed observation both ways. The human participant was asked to think of someone in popular conscious, fictional or no, and cogitate on their image. I think it's supposed to be cognate on their image, personality, face, and if possible, voice, if possible, etc. Our participant chose Jesus of Nazareth, great, and with weekly repeated exposures to the participant's imagining propagation began to form what resembled anthropoid Nazarene in the fold of its spines. Previous human-oriented tests have always bore a result that Whiskers would form an anthropoid team member, be it me or Dr. Hart or Gerald, and we assumed it was merely mimicking one of us. Dr. Hart was always contended with the desirous yield, or the anthropoid reproduction Whiskers creates when in contact with human beings, has always been based on the conception and relation to the person throughout someone else. With this framework, the desirous yield is not actually a replica of a person, or if it is, it's only a replica of the fiction of a person generated in the mind of another. This desirous yield was not Jesus Christ, but the participant's image of Jesus, assembled from their religious upbringing, religious artwork, depictions of popular culture, etc. The radiograph was taken right before the destruction of the growth cycle, while Whiskers was not rendered unconscious via the fumigation. It seems like with every successive propagation, the stem cells in the organism work a little faster, but I'm not paranoid. It's technically deathless, yes, but we're burning up whatever knowledge we gain when we incinerate. I don't believe in magic just yet. Okay. Interesting. Alright. So let's save again. That was the city corner. Let's go to the kitchen corner. Search upper fridge. Lettuce, okay. Lower fridge. Banana. Prepare food. Soft vegetable. Unappealing. Fiberglass. Oh, wait, what? Why would we want to do this? Is there a problem with just feeding him something? I'm curious. What does this say? Acceptable foods seek out things to feed Grandpa. Teach Grandpa. Turn. Okay. So go to Grandpa. Observe. Dear Grandpa, noting its movements, respiration, and general mood. Grandpa seems to be sort of sluggish and bored. You feel it might more content and readily cooperate once fed and taught a word or two. Feed Grandpa. Would you like to view the tour for sight? You will not be prompted again. Brief story will go over the basic of feeding Grandpa. Via induction of your unprotected insula, Grandpa has simulated the production of tooth enamel to mimic human mouth. It will need to be fed through this in order to properly learn and grow. First, you will need to select an item from the lunchbox. Go to the lunchbox in the bottom right corner. The contents of the lunchbox will be displayed. Nice food, bad food. Select from the item from the lunchbox. Doing so will fill your hand with the item. Note that any food can be put back in the lunchbox by clicking the lunchbox. Before Grandpa can be fed, it must judge the food by smell. Hover your hand above Grandpa's olfactory bulbs. If Grandpa is pleased, it will allow you to feed it. Most foods Grandpa will accept, however. Getting Grandpa to consume other things requires more culinary deception. When Grandpa is willing to be fed, hover the hand over the mouse and click. Grandpa will consume the food. Good luck on feeding Grandpa. Small window, Grandpa, okay. Nice, okay. Well, let's give you cashews. Different to smell. What is that? Blueberries. Finds this palatable. Okay. Banana. Different to smell, but would accept this as a meal. Satiates hunger, but that is all. Okay. Okay, so blueberries. Here remains to be sufficient. Okay, just give it some fruit, I guess. Meal appears to have been sufficient. Step away from the bars. Appreciation locomotes towards the favorite corner. 2 digestible food. Okay, that's all we needed to do was 2. Teach Grandpa. Go to Grandpa. Teach Grandpa. Hello. Would you do the tutorial before you start? You will not be prompted again. Example. This is a brief tutorial. We'll go over teaching Grandpa pronunciation and vocalization. Vocabulary word you picked appear in the top left corner. In the bottom right, the corner will be a pentagon that's divided up into 8 sections. Each section will be highlighted briefly. The notification sound will play, and soon another section will be highlighted. You control the round icon that sits above the pentagon using your mouse. The ball is constrained to the limits of the pentagon. The goal is to keep your icon highlighted area and move into the area that changes section of the pentagon. When you hold it above the correct highlighted area, the icon will start to vibrate along with the simulated vocal cords, and the current letter of your world begin to turn red. Holding over the highlighted section and adjust your icon as it changes place. Soon the letter will become fully red. After a letter becomes every letter becomes red, Grandpa will probably pronounce the word to you and it will be considered learned. Teaching Grandpa these words will accelerate the cognitive development and lead to further breakthroughs in general intelligence. Teach the word hello. What is going on? Why is it doing this? Oh, wait. Hold on. Oh, I don't need to do that. It's like not working. It's acting like there's something keeping it away. Teach Grandpa. Hello. Okay. Like, nothing's happening. It's not turning red or anything. What is going on? Why is this doing this? Oh, you have to hold the button in the spot. Oh, that was not clear. Wow, why is this so fast? I don't know why it keeps going to center in a weird way. Yeah, I don't like this minigame. Phonate confidently. Hello. Having completed your lesson, you take a look at the back of the vocabulary module and note the written administrator of the past. Hello, neural pronunciation. See below. We are already encountering some difficulty as Whiskers subjectively is so much determined by the diverse and dynamic array of influences it attempts to mimic the thoughts and desire to passively intercepts. And these imitations go on to structure the basis of its identity. Only later in weeks Whisker's growth cycle does it begin to form an identity or identities that are coherent and capable of resembling a sane, rational human being engaged with in conversation. Must imagine how hard it would be to converse with someone who is not yet oriented in one particular way towards who or how they are, because they might have 20 different honest answers to those questions, all of them mixed and muddled together. Because of this, we have started with the basics of conversation. Greetings, partings, identifying one another, forming questions, etc., etc. It is unfortunate Whisker's growth... Oh, it is fortunate Whisker's current growth, 19, I believe, has developed a most accurate human mouth simulation. Hello was a bit of a challenge in the previous growth as it had failed to develop an adequate organ to act as a human tongue. Okay. Teach Grandpa. Teach Grandpa, Grandpa. I don't know why it goes... This is really awful to do, by the way. Because, like, I try to move it, but it, like, shakes. I get that it's supposed to be, like, emulating, like, vibrations, but, like, I click, and sometimes it's like, oh, you want me to go back to center? It's like, no, I don't want you to go to center. Stop. And I... See, like, this is what happens. Like, I'll move it, and it goes back to center. Move it, goes back to center. Move it, goes back to center. I hate that so much, dude. Because it's like it stops reading my mouse essentially at certain points, like that, right? It's like it's trying to like confine me, but it's like doing a terrible job at it. Yeah, this system is just awful. Yeah, it's weird because I thought it was my mouse, but no. Basically, what it is I think if you try to, hey, I said Grandpa. If you try to go out of the confines of the pentagon, it just goes and takes you right back to the center. It doesn't like stop, because it says you're stopped within the confines, and that's wrong. You're not stopped within the confines. You're reset within the confines. Having completed lessons, you take a look at the vocabulary. Okay. Family. We've done several sessions we're calling familial relation simulation. I and co-researchers sit in chairs opposite the enclosure. We're wearing the usual masks, and we begin to act out a scene, mostly through improvisation, that might roughly resemble a kitchen table conversation between immediate family. Repeated trials could reveal, although our simulated conversation was purposeful, vague, and unspecific regarding the person's identities, we only address each other as brother, father, sister, etc. It soon became apparent the encoded information associations we unconsciously drew upon when hearing and speaking these words was picked up on by Whiskers in the psi-type field of reception interpretation. of brain-mind events semantic content. My co-researcher William noticed that this is a simulation where Whiskers was given a role as sister, and he, as a brother, I was the father, began responding in certain prompts with unusual specificity, as well as general pattern and timbre of speech that continued with unusual consistency. As soon as the simulation ended, we found the enclosure area. William let me know that Whiskers was almost certainly drawing from encoded memories of his late sister, mapping out exactly what regions and centers of neuroactivity were intercepted by this Psi-type field. Will take extensive neuroimaging that we do not have at this site. Currently, we only have less precise portable equipment. However, experience so far are eerily in line with folks' knowledge and folk explanations regarding the being's access to desires, and we can begin to infer it in access to certain portions of the limbic system and ventral temporal cortex. Ugh. Okay, I need to run to the restroom. I'll be right back.